Chapter 63, Judgment. Vertex Cube. An isolated room. Absolute silence. Sterile perfection, and a terrifying edge hid within that purity. Cold, mirrored walls. Even neutral light flooding the space. Zero shadows. The matte floor swallowed footsteps without a sound. Every detail calibrated. Every line serving a single directive. Control. An ancient device grew straight out of the floor, compact, unfathomably complex. Its surface shimmered, layers overlapping layers. Soft light pulsed through razor-thin channels between the segments. Peter froze. He recognized the architecture, utterly alien to human design. The data he provided cracked its core protocols, but seeing it raw, it eclipsed everything. His breath hitched, thoughts tangled. Impossible. The word echoed in his skull. Only days ago he worshipped the perfection of the cube system, felt clarity of purpose, peace. The man born of flawless logic had cracked. Now, staring at this ancient machine, he didn't feel salvation. He felt a premonition. Something massive, unfathomable pulling the strings. He couldn't name the feeling. Deeper and more primal than fear. He had no idea what the mechanism would project, but his gut screamed, this would rewrite reality. He used to hunt for truth in data. Now, the data felt like a one-way ticket into the abyss. Morden stood beside him, the avatar of composure. Zero tension, zero anxiety on his face. Only deep, solemn, absolute certainty. He believed in what was coming. For Morden, this wasn't a demonstration. It was truth. A truth Peter had to comprehend, accept. What he was about to see would strip away any illusion of choice. "You must see this yourself," Morden said softly. His emotionless voice bypassed logic protocols. It drilled straight into Peter's consciousness. The mechanism woke. Surface panels shifted, sliding with lethal precision. A low, rhythmic hum bled from its core. It vibrated in Peter's bones. The light in the room stuttered, warped the geometry of the walls. For a split second, Peter felt the floor drop out. What if he wasn't ready? Panic flared. He braced, tried to hold his ground. Too late. An invisible shockwave slammed into him, ripped him from his anchor. Reality inverted. Sound, light, physical sensation. Gone. The void swallowed everything. He plummeted into an abyss, blinding, tearing his baseline perception to shreds. The Ascended's data space unfolded before him, flawless, terrifyingly real. He knew instantly, only they possessed this architecture. History unleashed a torrent. It incinerated his senses. The birth of Earth, rivers of liquid fire, a boiling primordial ocean, blind lightning striking smoking rock. Then, life. Single cells, drifting algae, silent fish, clumsy reptiles, the first warm-blooded mammals. Frames accelerated, whiplash speed, colossal lizards erased by primitive tribes, fire sparking in damp caves, humans stacking mud in stone walls, temples clawing at the sky, scripts born, language weaponized, a tool of absolute control. Empires violently bloomed and turned to ash, maps redrawn in blood, blooming valleys scorched into killing fields, inventions, wars, grand discoveries, colonies, revolutions, more wars. Everything wove into a single deranged, blood-soaked algorithm. Peter saw the Titanic leap forward and the inescapable code of its own collapse. Then, the cosmos. Hesitant steps out of the cradle, early strikes on a dead moon, fragile outposts on a rusted Mars, domed cities under the frozen skies of Jupiter and Saturn's moons, greedy strip mining of comets, colonizing the asteroid belt. He saw the first stellar wars over barren rock, a desperate scramble for survival, staggering scientific breakthroughs, instantly, effortlessly turned into lethal weapons. Massive orbital platforms manifested, autonomous colonies under the freezing gaze of AI, arrogant thrusts toward other suns. Humans engineered impossible tech, But every upgrade bred newer, horrific conflicts. Armadas breached the solar system carrying not peace, but hellfire. Deep space colonization ended in catastrophe, mutiny, genocide. Every time humanity hit the apex, it violently tore down its own architecture. And then, silence. It hit him like a physical strike. Everything flatlined. Space froze like burning film. Pulse hammered his skull, deafening inside the dead quiet. He stood in the absolute void. Inhale, a hollow echo in his brain. This silence crushed harder than a scream. It flooded everything, tearing him apart from the inside. Then, Earth annihilated. First, a micro-tremor in reality. Then, blinding strobe flashes ripping the atmosphere. The sky cracking along the seams. Continents convulsed in agony. Tectonic plates snapped like eggshells. Oceans boiled over, swallowing megacities. Ash and ice. Frozen void where life once pulsed. Earth stopped breathing. A mute, charred monument. An eternal warning. Humanity is hard-coded for doom. Locked in an endless loop of self-destruction. Total impotence against this eternal loop. If Earth itself died, how could he, just a man, rewrite the code? But the survivors pushed on. Fugitives. They scattered to the fringes of the system, and there, in the void, evolved into something terrifying. The first colonies were microscopic, isolated life rafts, desperately clinging to existence in dead space. Millennia passed. They engineered monolithic orbital stations, domed lunar cities, entire autonomous clusters that expanded, merged, fused into a network. Thus the cubes were born. A dream of salvation, morphed into a cage, not the genesis of a new world, a desperate firewall against the death of the old. From shredded hulls, asteroid slag, dust of blasted planets, and dead lunar megacities, they forged the first shells. Drilling rigs chewed into cold planetary crusts, smelting strata into building blocks. Automated foundries welded frames, seeded ecosystems. From ash, from wreckage, from the ghost code of a lost Eden. First, a single cube, an experiment, a test to see if an artificial biome could keep humanity alive, quarantined from its own lethal nature. Generations spawned inside, blind to Earth, blind to the stars. Then came the Temple Cube, a vault of data and absolute law, built to enforce stability at all costs. Then the next, and another. The borders of the synthetic universe expanded, capturing more souls. Tens of cubes became hundreds, thousands, closed loops, self-sustaining, quarantined. Cube protocols banned mass transit, only isolated jumps for the initiated. No one inside possessed the admin rights to see how the system truly functioned, who coded it, or if humanity ever had a home before. Even inside these cages, the drive to break out survived. Early rebels tried to punch through the bulkheads. They hit unbreakable firewalls, ruthless restriction protocols, isolation generated by the cubes themselves, an immune system protecting the host from the virus, humanity. Factions tried to network, secretly mining tunnels between cubes, engineering illegal transit tech, bypassing the hard-coded barriers. But the truth behind the cube's architecture remained locked. Every hack attempt triggered a catastrophe. Chaos was inevitable. Sometimes, instability triggered a total cube collapse, leaving a floating tomb. Other times, entire civilizations were wiped, deleted by internal war or external system overrides. Peter was pierced by understanding. The data merged into a single, horrific, high-res image. He knew too much. He had never felt so utterly powerless, so obsolete. Data, his ultimate weapon, now exposed his fatal flaw. The system didn't protect. It quarantined, locked them down. A trap. An infinite loop of the same script. The thought scorched his logic center. To realize himself, his values, his entire existence, was merely a cog in an eternal engine of death and reboot. An inmate in a prison designed as a lifeboat. It was unbearable. What was the optimal move? Nuke it to the ground? Break the loop? Or try to salvage fragments, risking the eternal reboot? The choice stood before him. Hard, lethal, irreversible. A life dictated by metrics and algorithms bottlenecked into this single moment. Logic demanded one vector. A barely functioning emotion screamed for another. For the first time, he saw the code. He wasn't just a cog. He was the override, savior, or destroyer, as if the universe's entire history was directly addressing him. The cubes, the firewalls, the riots, the purges, the death of Earth. His role wasn't random. He was the master node, or the fatal glitch. He felt it, deeper than any truth he'd ever heard. The mass of this knowledge crushed down, the fate of every future cycle loaded onto his shoulders. A verdict, not a data stream, not a memory, a trial. Century after century, epoch after epoch. History looped with terrifying precision. Tech surge, expansion, war, collapse. The world compressed. Flash, ash, shrapnel drifting in the void. A microsecond of absolute silence. Then, light. A new cube, a new run, boot up, crash. Like an admin continuously executing the same brutal simulation, expecting a different output. He froze. Internal systems locked. Even time hung suspended. His mind, cold and ruthless, compiled the undeniable sequence. Destroy the keys. Terminate the cursed loop. Salvage the remnants. Quarantine the universe against the cancer of humanity. Mordon was right. The data confirmed it. The only valid exit node. But a war raged in his cache. Faith rebelled against logic. A variable he never possessed. Weak, irrational, but alive. Faith forged not from cold analytics, but from the heat of another's hope. From the desperate fight of the allies he now valued. He clenched his fists until the knuckles went white. Breath hitched, ragged. Pulse hammered his skull, threatening to crack the bone. Visuals flashed across his optics. Kaya's face full of hope. Mir's resolve. Their home, the mountain and sea cube. Fragments of conversations, glitches of laughter. The raw pain of loss. Should all of this, all this life, all this fight, remain caged forever? Locked in a lie? A shift, right now. The virtual world rippled. Audio tracks distorted into a metal screech. Everything glitched. The fabric of the simulation was tearing apart. Absolute, terrifying clarity hit him. This wasn't the end. This was judgment. For humanity. And for himself. Every logged second, every executed decision, every life saved or deleted, all converged on this point of no return, demanding an input. Reality disintegrated around him. He felt the ultimate truth approaching. Final. Irreversible. And he stepped into it.